WoW's new player experience revamped, and it's huge. That's right, and we love huge things on this stream. That's why you guys watch me. WoW's new 1 to 90 questing and everything else. This is big, guys. I've talked about this before. For the game to remain healthy and for the game to remain relevant, it's got to have a really good questing system. It's got to have a really good player starting system. With all the new stuff coming into the game, all the add-on replacements and everything, I feel like the new player experience is heading in the right direction. I do. And that's necessary for this game to remain healthy. This will also matter for you if you make a new alt and you decide to go through the new leveling system. I'm assuming this will also matter, and it'll kind of change up things and how it's been delivered to you. Let's check this video out from Bellular and why this new revamped system is going to be so important and so huge, as he said.
There's a fairly simple fact. World of Warcraft dies if it gains players more slowly than it loses players. And for most of history, especially WoW's modern history, that's been a problem, and starting WoW...
Yeah, I mean, most of WoW's player base at this point is old and decrepit. I mean, look at me. I'm 35 years old. I started playing this game, I was a young, spry 15-year-old. So, yeah, we're getting kind of old. We're falling off, life responsibilities, things are happening. Most people are not as degenerative as me, who will wake up at 4 a.m. to still play this game. But the rest of the people out there, you know, they got jobs now, responsibilities, all kinds of things going on. So you got to still get the new people. You got to find a way to capture new players. And yes, there are people in this chat who've talked about how they're Dragonflight babies, or even, oh God forbid, Shadowlands babies. I don't know how you joined this game during Shadowlands and kept playing, but there's people out there who've been joining in these recent expansions. So it does happen, believe it or not, and you got to make it a nice experience when it does happen to keep these players around.
Been an absolute
That's why this
nightmare.
is important.
I mean, sure, Exile's Reach is fine, but it's a completely disconnected story that immediately dumps you into Dragonflight, and when you play Dragonflight, you don't have any context. If you're new, then you're confused. Of course, you can go and do Croving Time, but that still is a fractured experience that fails to onboard people into the world of Warcraft.
It's not a good system. It's not. I mean, imagine joining any other game for the first time and you're doing fucking time traveling shit to figure out what the hell happened. How broken of an experience that is. I don't think there's any game out there that I could do a time traveling experience and think, oh yeah, this is a really good way to tell me the story.
I've noticed something. Players who care about the Warcraft lore and setting typically started in like Vanilla, Burning Crusade, Wrath of the Lich King a bit of a while ago. And in those expansions, back in those days, you would level up sequentially from 1 to 60, 60 to 70, 70 to 80. It would take time. A lot of people would just want to level up faster, but players would get immersed in the world. They get immersed in the lore.
I will say WoW's vanilla leveling experience to me still goes down as the best MMO leveling experience ever created. 1 to 60 was just so, the world felt so big, the questing felt so great, the world felt dangerous. You go into a zone that you're not leveled up for. This was pre zone, what is it now? They have like the whole, like the zone matches your level and shit like that. This is before all that. It just all felt like a new adventure. Leveling felt like an adventure. It was a massive part of the game. For a lot of us, it was the only part of the game because a lot of us didn't hit cap level before Burning Crusade came out. So that whole process was great, and it just doesn't exist anymore. You can't have somebody level through Classic and expect them to play this game. So they had to change it.
They'd actually understand that stuff, and that coherent experience
unless you play Classic, right?
Investment.
Vanilla.
Now, though, people can't make heads nor tails of the lore. I'd say especially if they're new. And today's Exile's Reach does still put you into Dragonflight, but that's not putting WoW's best foot forward. And that's where the big news of today is. Blizzard wants to fix this, and many fixes are coming. They're coming this year, specifically in patch 11.2.7. And what these are going to do is pretty much entirely revamp how World of Warcraft is to new players.
It needed
There's even going to be a modified campaign that you'll be able to play if you feel out of the loop. I also have a problem. Vercel's V0 and every no-code tool on Earth have empowered a new generation of vibe coders. I've kind of joined them. My editors have actually been making internal tools for our team that previously we'd need an engineer for. There's a problem, a dragon, and that dragon is backend, and my sponsor boot.dev exists to help you slay that dragon. And I'm not even being cheesy. Boot.dev is built by a gamer for fellow gamers, and it fits my weaknesses, right? Coming from C# game dev, mostly in Unity, front-end
Classic leveling.
Kind of like fine.
You had to eat and drink constantly.
But wiring up databases, dealing with auth, all of that was obscure wizardry. It just isn't really where I had learned. And that's why I swear by boot.dev. Lane
That's
the team
right.
have baked the fun of an RPG, so quests, XP, guild style.
You guys think I could like learn how to code to the point where I can push my stream out on OnlyFans? Think I could do that, like back end code to rig OnlyFans to just put my stream up everywhere? That'd be great. Although my chat would be extremely horny then.
This is actually how. Now you will build and
As if
deploy
it's not
server
already.
client Pokedex. You'll remake asteroids in Pygame. You'll even tackle job search preparation. And that's the thing with Boot. They don't skip the important stuff.
Only Sam's.
So no more tutorial hell, no pricey bootcamp hustle bullshit, just a structured path that turns your energy to make shit into viable engineering
That's true, Kale
talent.
Sauce.
And Boot itself keeps on adding
That's
features.
true.
You've got the searchable spell book and constant content drops like TypeScript, which is absolutely huge. And I also have a hack to save you some money. Boot.dev/Bellular, right? Code Bellular gets you 25% off your first purchase. And if you buy the yearly plan, well, 25% of a bigger number is a bigger number. That'll
There it
save
is.
you the most. And if you don't gel with it,
Use code
don't worry,
Bellular.
there's a no-risk 30-day money-back guarantee. The revamped new player experience involves reworking 3 key parts of World of Warcraft, which are Dragonflight, the War Within, and Exile's Reach itself. Now,
Okay.
these things aren't like just little level-up campaigns that are strung together. What Blizzard are also doing is restructuring the endgame content of these expansions so that you can actually play that content while you're leveling your character.
Oh, right.
And what this means...
Yeah, this is the story mode. They're using story mode so you can actually go through the raids and learn the story. Because, yeah, a lot of it would make no sense. Imagine getting dropped in. All of a sudden, you're hearing about this crazy dragon named Furkak and his sister Vaginoth, and you're not sure what the hell's going on, and who are these people? Oh, here comes Irididikakron, and he's like trying to steal the... It makes no sense, and then you go through the questline campaign, and then all of a sudden Furkak's dead, and you're like, how did he die? What just happened? That would make absolutely no sense. And the dragons got their powers back. Great. How did that happen? You're not sure. Well, you didn't even see the Power of Friendship cinematic that happens at the end of the raid. So yeah, going through that in story mode, I think, is a massive improvement. Actually turning it almost like an RPG, the leveling experience, to kind of learn everything, go through the campaign single player, and find out exactly what's happening in the story through the cinematics and everything.
Is that World of Warcraft is adopting something similar to Final Fantasy XIV's pretty goddamn successful model of making the full story into a single coherent campaign. Because if you're playing, say, the FF14 MSQ, you don't just say, go to 5.0 and then skip to 6.0. No, you play all of the story in between. That's important so players know what the hell is going on. WoW is quite the opposite. You'll finish the Dragon Isles and you'll jump straight into the War Within, but you'll do that
Right.
without seeing any of the Dragon Isle stories conclude, without seeing any of the real setup for War Within. Characters will leap ahead inexplicably in their plot. Say Xal'atath. Her appearing in the War Within feels random if you've not fought Sarkareth or done, say, the Void...
God, Sarkareth, the fucking most anticlimactic villain ever. It does matter. The story does matter. A lot of people will say, well, why does this... Well, who cares what happened to Dragonflight? Who cares? Look, story and lore matters to keep people in the game. A lot of times if gameplay falls flat, systems fall flat, the season gets a little bit boring. You know what gets a lot of people to come back? They want to know what happens in the story. If they get attached to the story, they get attached to some of the characters, the character arcs, and things like that, it'll always bring them back to resub because they want to know what happens next. It's just a human thing. We want to find out what you get attached to some of these guys. You want to find out what happens next. So I think it's a really good thing for Blizzard to kind of emphasize the lore and the storytelling during the leveling experience.
Storyline from the Fractures in Time patch. This stuff is a nightmare, and to understand how transformative Blizzard's overall changes are going to be, what I'll do is examine what new players will actually experience as of patch 11.2.7.
It's coming soon. This is a good thing. I thought
First
they were
up,
going to change till
Exile's
midnight.
Reach is being revamped, so new players are still going to begin there, but Blizzard is essentially remaking it with a different story, a new one, and one that will flow directly into Dragonflight.
Nice.
But the Dragonflight you'll go into is a little bit different to the one that you've, well, played up to now. And just so you feel the difference, this new version of Exile's Reach will lead you directly to the Waking Shores by essentially making it, well, a storyline that flows with consistent characters.
Oh, good.
And narratively, tying these things together can make sense. Exile's Reach is located in Azeroth's North Sea, basically northeast of the Eastern Kingdoms. It's north of Kulturas. It's near, say, Northrend. It's also near the Dragon Isles. That means it is
Nice. Yeah, geographically, this makes sense, right? It's right next to it. Sure.
perfect
I can see how this
positioning
works.
for, well, transitioning into full Dragon Isles. Now, Blizzard have also said that Thrall, Jaina, Kael'thas, and Rathian are going to be involved in this new experience as well. And if you're bringing in a character like Rathian, well, that's extremely important. He's directly involved with the Drakthir storyline, so we know that around the time of Dragonflight's beginning, Rathian's basically flapping about in that neck of the
Whoa,
woods.
flapping
So
about.
maybe the Evoker stuff happens, and then he goes to Exile's Reach. Maybe it's the other way around, but basically, these things will flow together. But it's not just him. Kael'thas is also going to be there. Obviously, Kael'thas is heavily involved in Dragonflight's story, and that will mean that for players, it will feel like a single storyline rather than them doing the current Exile's Reach, which is basically irrelevant to the current story, which will mess up the signal-to-noise ratio of the game,
Right.
that then throws you straight into the capital cities, again, with very little context, and then after that, you're thrown into Dragonflight, which, of course, in the current Exile's Reach, you won't be ready for, or you could, go into Chromie time, I guess, and just get kind of confused. Now, the original Exile's Reach involved a necromantic dragon plot with a bunch of ogres. Of course, if Blizzard wanted to get that ogre stuff tying into some of the Void, maybe the Twilight's Hammer, they could try and do something like that. I don't think that would really make too much sense.
Yeah.
But the fact
Also, I mean, the sheer disappointment. I mean, imagine you're a new player, you don't know anything about the game, and you see these ogres, and you're like, "Ooh, are these guys playable? Could I be these guys?" You find out no. You do some Google searching, you realize they were originally supposed to be a vanilla race that never happened. You're like, "Oh, that's fine." And then you see yourself the Draconid, and you're like, "Holy crap! Look at these jacked-ass dragons. I want to be one of these guys. Can I make one?" Oh yeah, we can make dragons. Wait a minute. Why are these dragons so skinny? Why are these twinking-ass dragons running around? Oh, I can't be a big boy? I gotta be one of these little skinny scalies? What's the point of this? And then you fall into the Moonguard trap, and you realize why these scalies even exist, and now you've jumped into a furry convention in the middle of Elwyn Forest. You just wanted to level up a character. How did you get here? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. This is better.
that there was necromantic dragon business going on does mean there's dragon business on Exile's Reach, which means it will flow into Dragonflight. Perhaps we'll find out Exile's Reach was involved in the Scaleborn conflict. Maybe that's why there's, a dead dragon there whenever we went to the original version of the island. And that sort of thing would foreshadow the Primal Incarnates well, who of course will appear as some of the main villains in Dragonflight. Rathian being there is great as well. He's got connections to Deathwing, to the Old Gods, which also means to
Rathian's
the
a
Dark
good
Heart,
character.
and of course to Iridicron. That's all stuff that could be baffling to a new player who maybe doesn't know about, say, the Cataclysm expansion. This, then, should help clarify those relationships.
Yeah. And Iridicron's important. He's going to show up in The Last Titan. I mean, that's for sure. We already know he's got that whole plot. That's how the Dark Heart ends up in Xal'atath's hands and all that. So they got to know the Iridicron storyline. So this is a good spot to start.
My question is whether the likes of Captain Garrick and the other Exile's Reach characters will return. I mean, they're already in the Waking Shores, so if Blizzard wanted to make, I suppose, Scions of the Seventh Dawn Diet Edition, maybe they could do that. And we do know some of those characters can join you in follower dungeons, and that's going to become irrelevant because, well, it ain't just follower dungeons. We're also getting more story mode raids. With that said,
That's good.
Let's talk about the next piece of the puzzle, which is Dragonflight itself. To us veterans, Dragonflight may feel narratively scattered. It was establishing many different plot threads. Some ended up being relevant, others less relevant.
Yeah.
And what Blizzard have said they're doing is essentially a remap of this expansion's campaign to include endgame content within the level up experience. So as you level from 10 to 70, you'll complete each zone's main campaign, all that stuff. Then you'll experience the endgame content that resolves those storylines. And this is absolutely huge for WoW.
Makes sense.
Of course, it's a structure that does make narrative sense as well.
Yeah, it does.
You'll complete the 4 leveling up zones that will introduce the local plot threads, get you a bit immersed. Then you'll experience the Vault of the Incarnates in story mode. That's where we defeat Razageth, but, well, she does manage to free the other Primal Incarnates. Most importantly to our story, Iridicron.
Right.
Now, you'll then immediately be able to follow them to the Forbidden Reach. That's where you'll see them acquire the Dark Heart, which is an artifact that's central to the story. Then that journey continues into Aberrus and Zaralet Cavern, which seriously matters. Now, yeah, there is all of that Black Dragonflight succession stuff. Can people get over their daddy issues? Maybe that'll get trimmed. Hopefully that'll get trimmed down just a smidge. To me, there are two relevant things. First, learning about Deathwing and the Darkheart, and second, Sarkareth. So, fighting Sarkareth in Aberrus introduces the cosmic void aesthetic, and that's the primary threat that we're going to be facing down in Midnight. So, by weaving players through all this narrative in their 10 through 70 experience, it essentially ensures that newer players will understand the upcoming dangers, and they won't feel like they're completely out of left field. After Aberrus, of course, we go over to Fractures in Time, and that is an absolutely pivotal moment. In many ways, it's where the whole World Soul saga actually starts. Essentially, it's Iridikron doing a time heist to steal Galakron's essence, which is honestly pretty rad. He then infuses...
I actually like the storyline a lot. The whole Iridikron, messing with us. He's playing 4D chess. Turns out, oh, actually, I wanted you guys to defeat me. Then go back in time and... actually, I won now because now I got the Darkheart with the essence of Galakron in it. So it was a really cool thing. Plus, this is the first time you kind of see Xal'atath, right? She's that shadowy figure. So you got to remember, these people haven't played through Legion. They don't know about the Shadow Priest, dagger and all that stuff. So seeing this shadowy figure in this portal is like a prelude to, ooh, who's that? And we got other things coming here. And then you find out that was Xal'atath later on.
That into the Darkheart and delivers the Darkheart to Xal'atath, and that's what directly sets up the War Within expansion. In the world where that's a new player's default level up experience, they won't need lore summary videos because they'll actually be able to experience the content in the game. But at least insofar as our 10 through 70 experience goes, you won't be straight into the War Within yet. Blizzard have said that Farak story mode will be a part of this, so yeah, that means we'll have to finish the job and cap off Dragonflight. So after Verinolf's very quick redemption and Farak's defeat, what we end up doing is saving the Emerald Dream. And this bit will be essential as we move forward because players actually need it as a lore foundation to understand the Haranir. You see, the Emerald Dream patch develops crucial Azeroth lore. It introduces the Tales of Aluna here, which...
they also need to understand why the Night Elves are where they are, right? They'll figure out why their capital city is where it is and all that stuff.
Basically reveals that Alune sent guardians to defend an ancient world tree's roots. Of course, those guardians are the Haranir, who players will then meet in the War Within. Now, Blizzard doing all of this is not going to be a perfect experience, right? But it doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to be decently cohesive. I mean, people love the Final Fantasy narrative, but man, slogging through Realm Reborn really is quite a slog. I think what matters here is players get a complete story. But that is actually not the complete story, because there's another element to this, and it's not just the new War Within campaign. There's actually something that'll happen before that. Taking a look at Blizz's infographic, we see the progression of Exile's Reach, Dragonflight, Lore Walking, and then War Within. And this placement of things is brilliant, and it makes...
That's great. That's a great idea. I didn't realize they were going to use lore walking in the campaign. See, lore walking is not as like jolting or jarring as Chromie Time is. Chromie Time, going through an entire expansion back in time, get lost in that shit. That's a lot of stuff to do. Lore walking is I enjoyed lore walking a lot. A really cool way to tell stories about some of the most important and prime characters from World of Warcraft history, and you're experiencing it via a story, right? You literally have lore walker Cho telling the story as you're experiencing it. This was a great way to learn some lore, and awesome. I think it's a really smart idea to put it into the campaign for them.
We have a realm to destroy.
Metal Warrior, thank you for the follow. Welcome to our Scourge.
This placement of things
like Cliff
is
Notes,
brilliant,
exactly.
and it makes the lore walking feature make so much more sense. If you're out of the loop, by the way, lore walking gives you bite-sized story experiences that are narrated by lore.
I was only able to do the Lich King lore walking storyline. If you remember, I think I went on vacation during the lore walking stuff, and then I missed a bunch of it. But I did go back and watch it on YouTube. I watched some of the the lore walking campaigns just to learn about Xal'atath and what happened with her and all that stuff. But I thought lore walking was a lot of fun. And if I had more time, I would have played through all of them.
Walker show, and currently there are 3 featured stories. The first of these explores the Ethereals, and that's basically setting up the events of Koresh. All of those things from patch 11.2. The second one covers Xal'atath's arrival on Azeroth and her imprisonment within the Black Blade. It actually lets you hear her whispers via dialogue with Cho, helps you understand her motivations. That's obviously important lore background for people to have. And then the third revisits Arthas and the culling of Stratholme. That's obviously emotionally powerful
such a big event.
content that introduces one of WoW's like literally most pivotal moments.
Do you think Sakureth was talking to Demancius? I don't know if he was. It was probably Zalateth, if I had to guess. I don't feel like Demancius does much whispering. He just seemed to want to be summoned and destroy planets. Zalateth was the one doing all the whispering and the conniving and the corrupting and all that stuff. So it was probably her.
It brings in some darkness. Arthas is obviously a character that I think a lot of even lapsed players would recognize because of the Lich King. But what's neat to me is that these are not just random story choices. Each one is introducing a major type of threat. Cosmic stuff through the Ethereals, more cosmic stuff through Xalatath, which is very important for Midnight, but also, with doing Arthas and the culling of Stratholme, they're doing stuff surrounding the light that we know is going to be important for Midnight, because we will go to Stratholme with Arator. So in Lore Walking, Blizzard are actually setting up that as well. And for new players, experiencing these foundational moments to the plot, well, it just means they'll have the context that they need to actually, well, play the War Within and understand more of what's happening, and ideally, also appreciate Midnight. This is pretty damn smart. And I just want you to almost forget what you know. Imagine you're a new player, you've just done these lore walking campaigns, and maybe you've then also done the patch 10.2.7 Darkheart storyline, the one that gives you a natural flow into playing the next expansion, the War Within. That's really fantastic, and it means that these lore walking things, rather than an optional side activity, they really do prepare you to be able to parse and appreciate the story that's coming up. But if you've been thinking about leveling up, there may be a question in your head, which is just, how the hell are we going to fit all of this between levels 70 and 80? That's where there's more good news, because it seems Blizzard has a solution.
Nice.
There's going to be a new War Within campaign. This is kind of wild. And it clues me into what Blizzard, I think, wants to do going forward. So they're creating a condensed War Within campaign that covers the...
They're going to do the Arathi storyline in the campaign. Oh, no. That's so cringe. Oh, no. This might be where the people drop off. They're not going to get to Midnight. They're just going to stop here and be like, whoa, what the hell happened to this game? Just had a whole culling of Stratholme. Now we got these two chicks fighting over history. I don't know what's going on. Yeah.
Complete arc of this expansion. That means from the opening loss of Dalaran through to the regular zones, and then through all the patches, concluding with Koresh. That's a hell of a lot of content. You may think, oh, that'll take like 20 hours. No, Blizzard actually claims that this will take just a few hours. And I think that can even make mathematical sense. I mean, originally, the campaign alone, if you skipped all the side quests and just did the campaign quests, it would bring you to about level 77.5, leaving you about 2.5 levels to grind out via other means. If Blizzard are doing a trimmed version that's focusing on the core narrative beats that are the most important for Midnight, and you're also taking lore walking XP into account, yeah, I can see them delivering people from level 70 to 80 fairly slickly. And it means the players will experience a complete narrative from level 1 through to level 80. That's something we've not really had before. This would be a narrative that properly introduces the Void, Iridikron, Xalatath, and more importantly, it will deliver something that WoW has quite literally never offered, a questing experience that actually pays off its promises. Because right now, you do an expansion's quests, and then the story just stops. You would then need to know, where the hell do I go to see the end game campaign? And the game's systems actually don't even incentivize you to do that. They tell you to go to the next expansion, to go get more levels.
Right, you just skip over the War Within.
Not only can new players basically not intuit what they're meant to do next, but they'll experience a WoW that poses narrative questions and establishes storylines, but just about never resolves them. Just imagine leveling up through the Dragonflight campaign, stopping once you finished it, and then going straight to War Within. And all the stuff you would miss. And not only that, all of those questions Blizzard posed that were never answered, and that just trains you as a player. I should not pay attention to this slot because...
And the thing is, because the storyline is all like singular and it's supposed to go through this whole trilogy of expansions, you'd be lost all the way through the Last Titan. Like, you just... Iridikron shows up in the last, you'd be like, who the fuck? Wasn't this guy freed at one point? We did like... I don't even remember how'd this guy get here again? You'd just be lost. And for 3 expansions, you'd be lost. The nice thing about this revamp is that it's going to last all the way through the next at least 2 expansions, right? And then after the Last Titan, Blizzard can come back and kind of revamp it again, right? Use the same style of storytelling and everything, but kind of prepare it for whatever's coming next after the Last Titan.
If I do, it's not going to get resolved. So what this is the first time that WoW has structurally addressed that fundamental problem, which honestly is a problem with their player relationship. And I think what's neat is that updating this system for Midnight would simply require creating another condensed campaign. And that's something they'll have already proven that they can do with the War Within. But as for the Last Titan and the end of things, that's actually where I think it all gets interesting.
What even is the War Within about? Good question, Cadence. It's 2 expansions. It's 2 ideas smashed into one. Basically, the War Within is just a story about how the Dark Heart gained power, how we defeated, we pushed back or set back the Void, but Xal'atath's plan came to fruition with the Dark Heart. It's a Dark Heart expansion with some random Horoniers in there mixed in, and they're going to actually show up in the next expansion. And oh yeah, Ethereals are mixed in, and they're probably going to show up in the next expansion. It's not the best story expansion. It's not, but it's a tale of the Dark Heart. That's what I feel like the War Within's about.
Having a cohesive narrative experience in an MMO is such a hard problem. One way you can go, sure, is the Final Fantasy XIV way, but to do everything, to do all of that campaign, takes a hell of a lot of time. And we also know Blizzard have said that they're now willing to do things that are very smart for the game in the short term and medium term, even if they know that it's not going to be a permanent solution. So that's made me think about the future, because all the stuff they've done right now is brilliant for nailing the World Soul saga. You'll level up through Dragonflight, which is where some of those ideas form and establish, and then you'll have the 3 World Soul saga expansions. As for after that, well, this new leveling flow that I've talked about here won't really make as much sense, will it?
Right.
But more than that, it's not.
I mean, yeah, what sort? Yeah, imagine being like a new player and you see that cinematic with Thrall and Anduin, and you're just like, I want to play this game. I want to see what this is all about. And you play this leveling campaign of the War Within. You never see the sword the entire time. You're like, damn, what the hell? Was that a different game? Did I play the wrong game? What happened with that orc and that human and that big sword? I'm not sure if I'm playing the right game or not. Yeah, they did not address the sword. That clearly was a cinematic, Chris Metzen cinematic that's meant to prelude what else is coming, or preview what else is coming in the World Soul Saga, none of which came in the War Within. There will be no coming in the War Within, let's just say that.
Not like Blizzard could do an expansion after The Last Titan that suddenly says, oh my god, behind the threats of The Last Titan there was an even greater threat. No, that would suck, and they know it. They've actually talked about returning to more boots on the ground stories. So I think after World Soul Saga, yeah, it's time for a bit of a soft reset. Maybe that involves a larger revamp of Eastern Kingdoms and Kalimdor, reintroducing a new version of Azeroth with a clean slate for new adventures, which would probably mean another new player experience that is built to make that work.
Yeah.
All that this new player experience has got to do is set people up to enjoy this trio of expansions.
Exactly.
And of course, all the while, assuming Blizzard keep their word, the lore walking feature will be updated with more micro campaigns, which will give players targeted slices of the extensive backstory of this game. So if you ask me, this is what WoW has needed for years, and thankfully, it's getting it. The game's future depends on attracting new people, not just because they want a big internet dick by going and pumping a bunch of keys or, progressing in raiding, but no, actually liking this setting. And I think this restructuring shows that Blizzard understands how important that actually is. But there's one more thing targeted to existing players. First, actually, there is a returning player experience that's going to be set in the Arathi Highlands with Thrall and Jaina. But what I'm really talking about here is that War Within condensed campaign, because existing players will be able to do that as well. So if you feel like you need a catch-up and just what the hell has been going on, that'll exist. But if you want that catch-up right now, well, you can watch this video next, because it's all the lore, all the story you need for Midnight in 20 minutes.
There it is. I can't break this wall. My only option is to let Arthas clap my cheeks. What a well-timed blurb. What a well-timed blurb. I forgot to pause it. A nice video for Bellular. Nice thing about the campaign. I think this is really important to the game, the future health of the game and everything else. And I think this sounds like they did a really good job with it.